Hello and welcome, CPC fans. I'm your host, King L5, and today I'm bringing you my Week 3 match up against Narth. You can see his team. A few of the biggest threats to my team defensively would be the Celesteela, offensively would be the Terrakion. So those two are pretty much the main things that I have to look out for in this game. I mean, he does have other Pokemon that do have decent matchups, but those two are the ones that I'm most scared of. Celesteela, because if it is packing with Stone Edge, as you can see on my team, the only real true offensive way of beating that thing is my Zard Y, and if he has Stone Edge, that does kill me if he does predict the switch in correctly. So that's unfortunate, but I do have a few coverage moves as well as knockoff spam to get rid of the leftovers on that thing, as I'm expecting it to have leftovers because leftover Celesteela is by far the best defensive set unless you're trying to lure something. I do have the Thunder Punch on Metagross, Thunderbolt on Dragalge, and then knock off on the remaining 3 Pokemon, Landorus, Weavile, and Donphan. So yeah, Celesteela, that's the way I'm going to deal with it. The Terrakion, I do have a pretty defensive Donphan as well as a Bullet Punch Metagross, as well as a Weavile that outspeeds and a Scarf Landorus. That's going to be the ways I'm dealing with that. So with that out of the way, let's get a little bit more into my team. I have a bulky Wisp Zard Y. The special attack is to OHKO both Mega Manectric with 80 HP, which I'm expecting, and as well as OHKO and No Bulk Terrakion, which would be trying to speed time my Keldeo. So that's nice. The bulk allows me to, just generally live hits. Like, for example, I can live with T-Bolt from Mega Manectric, I can live a Rock Slide from a burned Goodra, and then when I roost up, it'll only do half that because I'll lose my flying type, so the combination of a roosted Rock Slide plus a non-roosted Rock Slide is not able to knock me out, so that's nice. This speed is for the Crocodile creeping my circuitry, because if I creep max speed Crook, I would have to run Timid, and I don't want to do that, so I'm running Modest here. And yeah, that's the Zard set. Next up is my Dragalge, just specially defensive with a little bit of special attack. This is mainly going to be my check to Mega Manectric. It is not 4-hit KO'd by HP Ice with Protect, so that's nice. Dual Stab Thunderbolt kind of hits his whole team decently hard. Thunderbolt is for the Celesteela, and yeah, it's just a nice Pokemon in general. Very bulky, very hard for me to take down. Next is my Landorus, which is going to be Choice Scarf, giving me a nice check to the Terrakion, as well as the Mega Manectric. He doesn't really have great ground resists that come in on Landorus besides Celesteela, and if I can predict the Celesteela coming in and go for a U-turn, that's a free Charizard, and Flamethrower is going to hurt very much. I can also knock off the leftovers and then spam Earth Power late game. That's kind of the plan going into it. I also have Scarf Defog because the last move isn't really that important, and I do want to be able to get rid of rocks from my Charizard if I need to. For example, if Donphan goes down and he has rocks up and I definitely want my Charizard in that situation, I can go for the Scarf Defog, get rid of the rocks, and be perfectly fine. So my Metagross is going to have a very large amount of attack with an adamant nature. The rest just dump into special defense to take hits better from the Mega Manectric, as well as the Goodra if he decides to run Flamethrower, which I think is a perfectly fine set versus me. I do have the Dual Stab Steel coverage, so Meteor Mash and Bullet Punch, and then Thunder Punch to catch the Celesteela and the Alomomola, which would be the main switch-ins to my Metagross. And I do have the Stealth Rock, because this is my best Stealth Rocker on the team in my opinion. It does get it up quite reliably, and so one interesting thing to note about the Metagross in this matchup is that Alomomola, since I do have a Weavile, could be running a set like Wake Up Slap Toxic, in which case it cannot beat my Metagross because it will not be out damaging my leftovers with Wake Up Slap, because he'll be forced to Wish and Protect to recover off the Thunder Punch damage. So if that is the set, which I think is quite likely, and if not, he's probably going to be walled by Charizard Y or my Weavile. Well, not exactly walled by my Weavile, but he won't be a great check to Weavile since you have to rely on Skull Burns. But anyways, one of my Pokemon is going to be able to take this on in any sense. And next up is my Weavile. Decided to go with a Swords Dance variant this week because, well, he does have the Alomomola, which is a very nice switch into Weavile. So if whatever he's in isn't like pursuit bait and he wants to try to stay in on the pursuit and stunt, he is always going to go into his Alomomola on the Weavile. There's no question about it, he's going to switch. So I can take advantage of that by going for a Swords Dance into a +2 Life Orb knockoff, which if the Alomomola is weakened, it will be able to knock it out, as well as if it's not weakened, I'm able to weaken that, and if it's not Wake Up Slap, I'm able to 2-hit KO, and that's nice. So Ice Shard is there over Icicle Crash because Low Kick hits all of the targets of Icicle Crash anyways besides the Comfy, which versus a Metagross is not a great bring in my opinion, so that's nice. Ice Shard just for priority on the Mega Manectric, potential Scarf Crocodile, Scarf Terrakion. All of these are pretty likely options versus me, so I wanted to have the option to pick those off if they are weakened with a boosted hit. Next up is my Donphan, because I do want Rapid Spin for my Charizard. It is much more reliable than a defogged Scarf Landorus, so that's nice. I'm able to check the Terrakion with the Earthquake, and the special defense is so that I'm not 2-hit KO'd by a Mega Manectric's HP Ice. Just knock off Spin, Toxic, Earthquake, pretty standard sets, nothing really too much to talk about for that. So with that being said, let's get on to the replay. As we can see here, he did bring the Goodra, which is likely going to be Assault Vest in this match to check a Special Landorus, a Charizard Y, as well as a Waterlogged Keldeo, so that's generally the set that I'm expecting. Terrakion, as you can see on his team, is the only Stealth Rocker, so I am expecting that to be a Rock set, maybe with a Z move. The Salazzle could be Toxic, trying to catch my Dragalge, and then just dual stab or something like that. Could be even like HP Ground, although probably not, because, you know, that's not going to be doing much to Dragalge anyways. The Mega Manectric is just going to be standard T-Volt, Volt Switch, HP Ice, probably Flamethrower, and then Celesteela I'm expecting to be bulky leftovers with Leech Seed, Stone Edge, and then some other coverage moves of his choice. It's really up to him. Then Alomomola could be Wake Up Slap Toxic, Wish Protect, probably mixed defensive, although he's probably leaning more towards the physical defense side to better take on my Weavile, as well as like a Secret Sword from Keldeo if I were choice specs. So that's going to be like my team preview thoughts. Let's get right into the game. I'm going to decide to lead off with my Landorus, because if you look at his team, he has 3 Pokemon that I would potentially force out with the Earth Power, being the Terrakion, the Salazzle, and the Mega Manectric, and so I can just go for a U-turn on those things, expecting to switch into Celesteela and get a free switch into my Charizard if I want to do that. And then I could potentially fire off a Will-O-Wisp, which would cover the Stone Edge if he wants to stay in, as well as the Goodra switch in, as I do wall Goodra if it is burned. So that's very nice. So I'm going to lead with my Landorus, as he does lead with the Mega Manectric. Sorry, I have the music on. Definitely turning that off. Shout out to Will the RNG Lord. But anyways, he leads off with Mega Manectric. I'm expecting to not want to risk the Scarf Landorus turn 1 on his Mega Manectric. I'm just going to go for the U-turn, expecting the Celesteela, but he stays in. I don't know why, but it worked out for him, so that's fine. I'm going to go into my Dragalge because it takes nothing from any hits, 29 from an HP Ice, and I do get my leftovers. I'm going to go for Protect because there's no reason not for him to Volt Switch, and I do get a little bit of Black Sludge recovery. And now I'm going to throw off a Thunderbolt, expecting the Celesteela to come in, although you're going to see he does go into his Terrakion, trying to get up these Stealth Rocks early for my Charizard. So that's a decent play on his part, but if I Draco, that would have done like almost 70%. But anyways, he gets up his rocks as I go into my Donphan. He has no Ghost type, so I am free to just click Rapid Spin here, get rid of those rocks as soon as possible. And now I'm just going to go for the Toxic, because if he wanted to try to stay in and get up rocks, I would be able to spin them away while he dies to Toxic, rather than having to Earthquake as he gets up rocks, and the rocks would still be up, and I would have to, kind of maneuver my way around with my Donphan to get the rocks off, and I just don't want to deal with that. As he does make a nice switch out into Celesteela, I'm going to take this opportunity to knock off its potential leftovers, but we're going to see its Aqua Berry. So that means that it definitely has Stone Edge, because why would you run Akka on your Celesteela if you're not trying to specifically lure in my Charizard? So I know that to be true now. But here, I know that the Charizard is like somewhat of a obvious play, quote unquote, because it does wall a standard Celesteela. But I'm gonna go into my Metagross because I know the Stone Edge is coming out, and that does 8%, revealing that he is, well, the knockoff damage reveals that he's probably mixed defensive, and the Stone Edge damage reveals that he's 0 attack. So yeah, definitely mixed defensive. I'm going to set up my rocks here as he goes for a Leech Seed, and now I'm just going to spam Thunder Punch as I don't really have a reason not to. I debated switching out into my Charizard, trying to catch him on a non-Stone Edge at some point, but I didn't feel like the risk was worth it, because Charizard coming in on Stone Edge means I just lose it right there, and that's really too much to risk at this point in the game. Here I'm going to Thunder Punch again, and I get the paralysis, which is nice, but it's not really going to end up mattering too much, as I do outspeed anyways, and he's not going to get fully parried throughout the game, so that's nice. I'm going to go for another Thunder Punch here as he goes into the Alomomola, and I get a crit, which is nice damage on his Alomomola. And now I'm just going to switch out into my Dragalge, as he makes a double into Terrakion, which is a very nice play on his part. At this point, he could potentially go for a close combat, trying to catch my Donphan on the switch-in, since it is in range of 2 of those. So I think his plays are Stealth Rock or Toxic, or not Toxic, Stealth Rock or Close Combat. Sorry. So obviously Dragalge would cover both of those, and the only way I die is to a Z move here. And I don't feel like he's going to go for a Z move here, so I'm just going to go for the Draco Meteor. And unfortunately, I'm not able to knock him out. So that's unfortunate, but he is in range of rocks. So I'm going to click Protect, get a little bit of my Black Sludge recovery, and now I'm just going to go into my Metagross because, you know, he went for close combat, and I know that he's going to want to try to snipe my Landorus switch-in, and my Metagross lives a close combat anyway, so it kind of catches everything here. And he does go for the Stone Edge, and I'm able to pick him off with a Bullet Punch, and if he does switch out, which you're going to see he does, he is dead to rocks and he has no removal, so that's a dead Terrakion, and if I am able to spin away the rocks with my Donphan at any point, they're not going to go back up. So that's nice. I'm going to go for the Thunder Punch here just to get damage on the Alomomola, and if he is Wake Up Slap Toxic, which is a very likely set in my opinion, he's not able to touch my Metagross at all, and I'm able to slowly recover my health with the leftovers, and a full health Metagross is very nice versus his team. So I'm just going to try to get that, and here he tries to Wish Pass into his Celesteela, as I'm able to just Thunder Punch that thing and knock it out. Thunder Punch just covered that if he wanted to do that, as well as just it's my most damaging move versus Alomomola. No real big deal with that play, but it did end up working out. So here, he is going to go into his Salazzle, and I'm figuring he's going to click Toxic, predicting my Dragalge, but like, even if I try to predict the Toxic and like go into Donphan for a spin or something like that, it's really not worth him going for a Fire Blast, and then I lose my Donphan basically, because it would 2-hit KO and leave me super low, and everything on his team outspeeds me. So I figured even though he's probably going to Toxic, Dragalge is still the correct play, as he does go for the Toxic, and Draco Meteor is likely to knock him out at this point, but he does show the Sub, which does get the drops on me. So that's kind of unfortunate, as he is able to Toxic Stall my Dragalge a little bit here. Unfortunate that he had the Substitute, because Dragalge could have put in a lot of work, as he doesn't really have a Dragon Resist at this point. So yeah, it could have put in a lot of work, but unfortunately we're going to go down to the combination of Toxic, Fire Blast, and yeah, just generally Toxic racking up. Now here, he's going to go for Fire Blast as I go for the last Draco Meteor, and I'm going to miss, which is kind of unfortunate because I could have gone into my Landorus after on the double down, because Landorus beats every single Pokemon on his team besides the Goodra, which would take rocks and U-turn. But since he did dodge the Draco Meteor, at least he dodged it without a substitute of, because that would have been much worse. But anyways, I am forced to go for the Earth Power here to knock it out. He's not going to save it because it dies to rocks and he doesn't want to take chip on anything. But now, the only thing that changes is that his Goodra comes in and doesn't have to take a U-turn, because if I went into Landorus on a double down, this the Meganetric loses 1v1, the Track dies to rocks, and the Alamola I can just U-turn out into my Metagross and keep getting health on that thing. So that's something that he doesn't want to allow, as well as Earth Power just generally 2-hit KOs Alamola in just anyways. And he is weakened a bit, so I didn't feel like he would want to go into Alamola in that situation anyways, so Goodra would be the play, and I would be able to get off nice U-turn chip on this thing, but now I'm unable to do so. I'm just going to go into my Metagross, expecting either a Rock Slide or an Ice Beam, as I felt like those were fair plays to catch my Donphan or my Charizard respectively. But he does make a nice prediction and goes for the Earthquake, and now I'm going to make a little bit of a play that I'm expecting him not to want to take a Bullet Punch, because this thing, its health is so important to him. So I did think he would go into Meganetric here to soak up the Bullet Punch potentially and be able to go for a Flamethrower, which, as you can see, would probably be able to net him a kill, because I'm never going to risk my Landorus versus a Meganetric, as well as everything else dies to Flamethrower plus coverage move. So I felt like that would be his play, so I'm going to go for a Meteor Mash to get off a little bit more damage on that thing, as well as just in case the Earthquake was like a high roll and I live the next one, I can be able to get off a huge amount of damage on the Goodra. But you're going to see he does Earthquake and knock me out, so that's kind of unfortunate. But now I can go into my Weavile, and remember what I was saying, how if he has Alamola in the back, Swords Dance is always going to be my play. Well, you're going to see it happen here. I'm going to go for the Swords Dance on his switch, and I'm just going to go for the knockoff here, and I'm able to knock it out here. So that's very nice, and here he's forced out into his Meganetric. It's his only play, and this is going to be probably my biggest misplay of the game. I'm going to go for the Ice Shard to chip down the Meganetric. It's going to put it in range of one more Rock Switch in after this. However, this was a pretty poor play on my part, because if you look at Charizard, it doesn't really do too much. It can't switch in on the Goodra. It can't beat the Meganetric after rocks, and I don't really think I'll be able to get an opportunity to Rapid Spin unless I want to sack a Pokemon, which I don't really want to do so at this point. However, I did have an opportunity to sack my Charizard here and then go into my Landorus. And Landorus could click Earth Power, which would force him to sack the Terrakion to rocks, and then he would bring in his Goodra, would be at 75. I can then sack my Donphan, and if he doubles out into Manectric, then that's fine, because I live even in Overheat, which is stronger than HP Ice, at my range of health, and Earthquake would be able to grab a kill. If he does attack my Donphan, then he would be able to 2-hit KO, and I can bring in my Weavile and force a kill with knockoff into Ice Shard if he decides to switch out, as well as knockoff just being able to either weaken or knock out the Goodra at that point, in which case my Scarf Landorus would be able to win. And if he decided to switch out into the Meganetric, I would still have my Weavile, because Ice, the knockoff into Ice Shard would likely be able to knock it out since I am Life Orb. And even if not, probably switching out into my Landorus to reset the Intimidate, and then coming back in with Weavile would be able to secure the game. But having Weavile around would be super nice, because versus Goodra it just gets a kill. So yeah, I do kind of regret this play, but I am going to click Ice Shard to get damage on the Meganetric, as he is going to knock me out the Flamethrower. And now I have two plays. I can go into my Landorus, or I can go into my Donphan and spin. Both plays are like okay, but I'm going to decide to go into my Landorus and click U-turn, as it forces a kill as well as damage on the Goodra. So that's two things that go in my favor. I get the Terrakion to die to rocks, which means he doesn't have that sack fodder in the back anymore, as well as Goodra is his only play right now, because Meganetric would be outsped and outgoed by U-turn anyways. So I do get U-turn chip on the Goodra as well. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my Charizard, because I feel like Ice Beam should be his play there, because if he allows my Donphan in our Rock Slide, that would be very bad and it would lose the game for him. Whereas if I go into Charizard on the Ice Beam, I can't really do too much to this thing anyways, so he can Rock Slide the next turn, which is what's going to happen. And now I'm just going to go for a flamethrower to get as much damage as possible on this thing. Definitely confirmed to be Assault Vest Gudra there. But now what I can do is go into my Landers, click U-turn. He decides to switch out, then my Donphan wins. But I can U-turn out into my Donphan. The reason I didn't go hard Donphan out there on that turn is because if he was a modest AV Gudra, which the calcs were a little bit, sorry about that. The calcs were a little bit ambiguous about that, so I didn't want to risk him having enough special attack investment to OHKO my Donphan with an Ice Beam or Draco Meteor. So I felt like Landers was the safer play because U-turn into knockoff would be able to knock out the Gudra as well as the Magmanectric in the back. If I did have Ice Shard here, Donphan would have won and I would have gotten the 2-0 victory, but this Gudra is confirmed to be Sap Sipper already, or at least not gooey. I don't know why you'd want to run Hydration, so definitely assuming Sap Sipper, and since it's not gooey, I'm able to sweep with the Scarf knockoff this following turn, and so my Landers is able to clean up the game, and that's going to put it at, I think, number 2 on the MVP list, if I'm not wrong. So that's nice. It's like 7-0, I think. So definitely a good Pokemon, and we do advance to a 3-0 record. So that's nice. Generally this game, I don't really have much else to say about it. The Terrakion getting up the rocks was pretty big. Other than that, I think not really much else to say about it. The knockoff on Alomomola could have been a roll, but regardless, I did end up getting the roll. So that's nice for me, at least. And yeah, not really much else to say. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.